Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of Ranking the Albums. Today we're going to take a look here at the short but very strong discography of a really underrated band, in my opinion. A band from the UK, all right, who emerged in 1970, talking about Trapeze. Probably most famously known as the band that got the career started of a very young singer and bass player named Glenn Hughes, as well as a guitar player and vocalist named Mel Galley. Glenn Hughes, of course, would go on to Deep Purple, and Hughes Thrall, and Black Sabbath, and Gary Moore, and Black Country Communion, and so on, Dead Daisies, solo career, so on and so forth, right? Mel Galley, of course, would go on to Whitesnake for a brief period of time. He would play on the Phenomena albums, right? So, as well as drummer Dave Holland, okay, who of course would go on to play drums in Judas Priest for many, many years. All right, so right there, the breeding ground for a lot of greatness, but greatness in this band as well. So they kicked off in 1970, all right, got signed to Threshold Records, which of course was the record label, the Moody Blues. Their debut album, produced by none other than John Lodge, right? So I'm going to kind of start there, work my way to I kind of gave it all away. So I'm going to go from my least favorites to my favorites, all right. Some of the middle albums could change a little bit. They're all really solid, but I'm going to go with my least favorite to my favorite, and feel free to do the same. So I'm going to start off at the bottom, and again, I don't dislike this album by any means. It's just very different from the band they would become on their second album. I'm talking about the very first album, Trapeze, from 1970. All right. This, of course, a different configuration of the band. So in addition to the trio we just spoke about, this also features Terry Rowley on organ, piano, flute, a little bit of guitar, and John Jones on trumpet and vocals. So, obviously got signed to Threshold Records. I think the record label wanted to kind of mold these guys into a certain direction. So the music on this is very different from albums that would come after it. You've got the swirling organ on here, and little bits of trumpets and flutes and things. It's kind of a lush album. All right. Kind of almost, I wouldn't say folky, but kind of like orchestral in spots. There are a couple rockers on here. It's My Life, good tune. Fairy Tale. Overall, it's just a very different album. I think Glenn Hughes' vocals on here are not kind of what we would see from him going forward. All right, he's very restrained on this album. A couple spots you start to hear the Glenn Hughes, but very young here, still trying to figure it all out. Not a lot of really, big riffs from Mel Galley, but a pleasant album. Like I said, it's got kind of a folky orchestral feel, sort of. And it's a nice listen, but you know what? If you have already been kind of subjected to the music of Trapeze after this album, listening to this, and this is the last one I ever got, is kind of like jarring, right? It's not bad, but it's kind of like, I don't think anything on here really stands out as like, my God, I got to check that band out, right? Whereas you listen to some of the successive albums, especially the next two, and you're like, whoa, that's a different story, right? But, as history would show, they would be down to the trio shortly thereafter, all right? And they would release a slew of albums that are more in the hard rock vein, little bits of funk, okay? Just very groove-laden musical type of band. Much, much different than that first album. So next I'm going to go with the Hotwire album from 1974. All right, and that is it right here. I got a 2-on-1, right? So by this point in time, Mr. Hughes is already in Deep Purple. Of course, they kind of snatched him away from the band. So here we've got Mel Galley taking over a lot of lead vocals. All right, they bring in a guy named Rob Kendrick, also help out on guitar and backing vocals. All right, Pete Wright is brought in on bass, also help out in vocals, along with Dave Holland. Pretty good album though. All right, I think all of these kind of latter period albums are really good hard rock albums with a lot of groove, memorable melodies and things like that. So I dig it. Same thing with the follow-up, Trapeze, from 1975. I think that one's a little bit better. Hughes comes back, guest on vocals on a few tracks. All right. Pretty good stuff. Some of the, Backstreet Love, really strong tune. Starbreaker, Steal a Mile, Going Home, Soul Stealer. These are from both of these albums here. Strong album. Or strong albums, I should say. Okay. Next up, I'm going to go with the last studio album they would do, which is from 1979. By the way, both of those are from 74 and 75. I'm going to go with Hold On, which is the last album I did. They did. I did. They did. This has got a guy named Peter Golby on lead vocals. He would later show up in Uriah Heep just a few short years later. Okay. This is a pretty strong album. I've always been a big fan of his vocals, and while I think some of the material on the other two albums I just spoke about might be a tad stronger, this is a pretty good hard rocking album with lots of hooks. All right, it's amazing what a good guitar player Mel Galley was. I think he just never got enough credit as going to be a sensational player. But this would be the last album from the band, sadly. Okay, but some good stuff on here. Hold On, Don't Ask Me How I Know, Running, Time Will Heal, Don't Break My Heart. Again, good riffing, good grooves, really, really strong vocals. If you like kind of the heavier early years of Foreigner, you probably dig this. All right, it's a very solid album. I dig it, but I like all these albums. Coming in at number 2, pretty damn special album. All right, from when did this come out here? Hold on a second, 1972. You Are the Music, We're Just the Band. This is one of those hard rock and funk albums. You know, they were doing kind of that like hard rock funk sound way before anybody else. Okay. And I think probably influenced a lot of bands that we would see come up with a similar type of really groove-laden heavy rock sound later on into the 80s and 90s. And, man, just Glenn Hughes firing on all cylinders vocally and on the bass. You got some great riffing from Galley on here. Dave Holland's very tight drum work. Some classic trapeze on here. And this is one of those, you put this album on, and, man, you just get moving. Headbanging a little bit, get your foot tapping, pull out the air guitar, you know, keep in time. You got Coast to Coast. All right. What else? Way Back to the Bone. Killer grooves to that. The riffs are awesome. Feeling So Much Better Now. You Are the Music, We're Just the Band. The title track is great. Every song in here is just really, really good. Killer album. I'll always love that live album cover, and here's the guys in the band on the back as well. If it wasn't for their second album, that would be my favorite, because that is a great album. But man, when it comes down to it, Medusa from 1970 is just, this is the shit, folks. Amazing how different this is from that debut. I mean, not even a year later. So it's down to the trio, and this is a heavy album. This is a groovy album. Glenn's vocals are killer on here. You know, you got Black Clouds. This album, it's funny, the riffs that Galley came up with on this album remind me a lot of times of kind of what he would try to do in Whitesnake for the Slide It In album many years later. Jury, great song. Dark, I mean, some of this stuff is just dark and heavy. Your Love Is All Right, Touch My Life, Seaful, nice heavy song. Makes You Want to Cry, and the title track, Medusa. Killer riffs. Man, if nothing else, you go listen to Black Cloud, Jury, Seaful, and Medusa. Killer. This is a great album. This is this is one of those, if you could only take 50 albums with you on a starship to the moon or on an island or whatever, it could potentially be one of them. It's that good. So there you have it. That's my ranking of the Medusa, of the Trapeze catalog of Medusa. Medusa number 1, okay, without question. You Are the Music, We're Just the Band, number 2. Number 3, Hold On. Number 4, Trapeze. Number 5, Hotwire. And number 6, we're going to go with self-titled. That's right, they had 2 self-titled albums to their credit. Why they did that, I have no idea. But anyway, that's my ranking of the Trapeze catalog. There's also there's a couple good live albums. There's a live in Texas from 1981, very good. And there's also Live at the Boat Club from 75. Those are both excellent. And it's amazing when you hear like the albums where Mel Galley's singing lead vocals. He sounds a lot like Glenn Hughes, so it's like it made a lot of sense to have him just kind of take over the lead vocals on a couple of those albums after Glenn left. So, but it's a shame when you really think about it. I know as history shows it, Glenn going to Deep Purple did great things there, obviously, but you have to wonder if the band didn't snatch him from Trapeze, whether Trapeze could have been a mega band. Gotta wonder, because they still, we're still talking like, early 70s here. A lot of years they could have done some great things. And it's like one of those kind of what if moments. Like, what if Glenn Hughes never joined Deep Purple and helped make Trapeze one of the biggest bands in the world? Could have happened. Maybe should have happened. We'll never know, right? Anyway, visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. What's coming up, you might ask? My top Mellotron albums of all time this weekend. Rolling Stones ranking the studio albums. Iced Earth top 10 songs with Jack Toledano, possibly some other stuff. Monsters Den, new Monsters Den episode. So stay tuned for all that. You don't want to miss any of it, all right? Make sure you subscribe if you haven't. If you're interested in all and helping donate to the channel, we've got a Ko-Fi page as well. If you want to give a couple bucks a month, it's greatly appreciated because, as you know, times are tough for everybody. So if you can, I understand it. I'm not sitting here begging for money. Just, every little bit helps because putting a lot of hours into the channel here. And, everybody knows everybody's having a hard time with the work situation. So, my wife's sitting here not working at all. So what are you going to do, right? It sucks everywhere out there. But we're going to get through it, right? We're going to get through it together, they always say. Anyway, guys, have a good one. We'll see you real soon. Take care. Bye-bye.